Hi. So, if you're new to the stream, this is the bit we do before we officially start. We're waiting for people to get in. The tweets have gone live and everything like that. But we chat about one thing generally at this point, and that's the word on the fridge. The word on the fridge this week is shots. Shots, 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 and more of them. You can sing the LMFAO song if you want. But certainly, certainly, there's a couple of young netminders who've taken an absolute pounding over the weekend, and I think we need to just, seem like a nice fun word. Obviously, we had a bit of a serious word on the fridge last week, given what happened, but wanted to just do something a bit lighter today. So we will see. Like I said, we'll give everybody, as we usually do, a moment or two to get in. So if you're joining us, hello. Share the stream, all that there. We'll do all the usual gump and guff in a moment once we get started. But if you're joining this bit at the beginning, I hope everybody's well. I'm very full, really, really full. I had a really good lunch at work. So it's like a Caribbean place. So I had some jollof chicken and rice. And then my wife did like spicy Indian like vegetable wraps for dinner. And then I had a brownie afterwards. So I feel very full. Very, very full. But we'll just give everyone another moment or two just to get involved. I'm just watching the little clock. You can't see it. Obviously, you've got the timer somewhere down the bottom, but I get a timer in the corner so I can kind of see how long I've been rabbiting away for before we officially get rocking and rolling. Also, before we get started, and stick this in the chat, this is how I know you were here at the beginning. Twitter's app, right? This new For You feed for Twitter. It's rubbish, isn't it? Just rubbish. What is it here for? There we go. We are rolling. We are rocking. We are rolling. Well, may as well get this party started, mightn't we? Guys, gals, and the gender fluid and all beyond the binary. It is Wednesday night. It is 8 p.m. And we are back once again for the BOTW What's Current Stream. My name is Anthony Russell, and we are here, as we are every Wednesday night throughout the National Ice Hockey League season, to talk about all the weird, wonderful, wild, and wacky news that has happened in British ice hockey, in the National Ice Hockey League structure. We focus on the NHL National Division. That is our bread and butter. That is our home port. But of course, we will at least absolutely mention and try to cover as much as we can from all the divisions of the NHL structure, whether it's the National or Division 1 or Division 2 in the North or in the South. I hope you're all doing well. A bit of housekeeping, of course, right here at the top of the show, as we always do before we get rocking and rolling. And the first thing is, if you're watching live, hello, we're here on YouTube. We've been on YouTube for a little while now, actually, for the majority of this season, because Twitter used to be on Twitter Live, and then it started being really awful. And so we've moved things here to YouTube, which is going really well. As with all YouTube things, we're going to say all the usual gubbins that comes with YouTube things. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, do please go and click the button and then hit the bell for notifications, because social media and these things work on algorithms. And also because the more people are watching, the more people get involved in NHL hockey, the better. It's great that way. You do, of course, because this show is live, you've got the chat function, of course. You can stick in there comments, questions, anything that is on your mind. Of course, we get towards the end of the show and it will get a bit freeform. We talk about hockey absolutely anywhere. But of course, if you are using the chat feature, please do remember the golden rule here at the BOTW What's Current Stream. And that golden rule is DBAD. Don't be a dick. Be respectful of other people's thoughts and feelings. Also, if you're watching live, please do take a moment just to quickly hop onto your social media of choice, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, whatever, and just share out the stream, because this isn't a monologue. This isn't me talking at you guys for an hour or so. This is, like I say, a conversation. The more people who get involved, the better the conversation. The better the conversation. We all get to have a bit of hockey chat on a Wednesday night and we get a look at the week that's come. Look at the week that's coming and just have a bit of a chill out. Like, the world's really tough right now, so let's just have an hour to just chat about hockey and just enjoy ourselves. It's much preferable to some of the other bits. The other bit of housekeeping, of course, that we do need to touch on is my website where I do my hockey writing, bannersonthewall.wordpress.com. That's where I've been writing mostly about the Basingstoke Bison, but as well about British hockey since 2011, just approaching our 12th birthday at the back end of March. There is a piece coming out from the Bison's game against the Raiders. I've been a bit time poor this week, actually, just because I've been planning I've been planning a new Hockey Stories piece, which I'm doing the first interview for next week, because there's a bunch of stuff that I do there on the website. A lot of it, like I said, is focused around the basics like Bison, player comings, player goings, match reports, low flying pucks, as Kev has just put in the chat that I can see, and I'll touch on that a little bit in a minute. But also as well, the one thing to say, like I mentioned, my Hockey Story series, long form pieces of content, the weird, wacky, and wonderful world of ice hockey, usually with a bit of a British slant to it. But we look at different topics, players. We go back as far into the 19th century. We touched on the Second World War. We touched on players and officials of the now. Of course, the last couple of pieces came out the back end of last year. We talked to Tom Ralph of the Hull Seahawks. We talked to Steve Nightingale, formerly of the Invicta Dynamos, and Haringey and Peterborough, who's now working for the New Jersey Devils as their performance coach and sports scientist. So there's plenty of stuff there. We've got the old BOTW podcast back catalogue is there on the website, as well as you can download for free our tabletop ice hockey game, Dice Hockey. That's there. A bunch of other crazy things are all there at bannersonthewall.wordpress.com. Okie dokie. Kev's mentioned it in the chat, and thank you, Kev, for joining us on week as you do. But we'll touch on the mildly awkward bit, because there's a couple of bits actually to talk about from Basingstoke's game against Romford from last weekend. And the first thing was that I got hit with a puck, which was a bit comical. Fortunately, not very hard, but it did hit me in the chest. What has happened is, and if you look back through the tweets on the Bison's Bison's Twitter account, is the Neil Lydiard has gone to clear the puck out of the zone. He's clearly gone to bounce it off the boards and out of the zone. Unfortunately, he has missed the top of the glass and it's gone flying out of play. What it's done is it's scraped my knuckle and then managed to hit me in the chest. Now, fortunately, it's hit me here. And on that night in Basingstoke, it was so cold as to it was beyond Baltic. So I'm wearing 3 layers, then a really thick scarf, and then a coat. So it actually essentially took a knock onto my knuckle and then got hit all of this cushioning I had in front of my actual rib cage. But yeah, I had my head down because I was trying to tweet at the time. So I'm like this, and all of a sudden it's someone got shout heads, and I went, huh? So yeah, that was different. Haven't been hit by a puck in a very, very long time. Not first time I've actually kind of been properly hit by a puck since living in Germany. I was more deliberately hit by the puck in Germany because it was more of my own invention, because there was a puck that came over the boards when I was living in Germany. I was at a Rostock game. I can't remember who we were playing. I think it was Schönheide. And I can very clearly see this puck is heading towards the head of a small child. So I stuck out my hand out of instinct to protect the small child, which was both a noble idea and also a very bad one, because hockey pucks hurt bone when you stick your hand in the way. Reflexes of a cat, and if nothing else from that one last Saturday, I was positioned well, straight in the chest. It's like doing my best Alex Metten, my best Ethan James impression. So just took it right there. But I'm fine. It's okay. My knuckle's actually quite sore still though, because it gets affected by the cold. But it's just because it's just hit bone. Like there's nothing else there, is there? So it's a bit bruised still. But yeah, it's just I wanted to talk about it because it was funny. Good evening, Niall. Greetings to the East Riding up in Hull. But yeah, the other thing from Basingstoke's game against Romford, and like I said, the piece is coming. Been struggling to write it a bit, and it's more just because of time. I have all the ideas in my head. I've actually written all of the stuff I wanted to write about Romford. Actually, it's kind of, there's some other bits and pieces coming out of it. A chunk of it is to do with the officiating. I'm not gonna lie, because I have some issues with how the game was handled on Saturday, and not in the sense of boo-hoo Basingstoke lost, but actually just because I think the problem that I certainly found was that I have for a really, really long time now. When I was a brand new hockey fan, you do what a lot of people do, and it's not an unreasonable thing to do. You get annoyed at the officials because they've made the decision that you think impacts the game. And the longer I've been involved with hockey, the less I've tried to do that. I think I can't remember who I was chatting to the other day about this, but I said there's basically four things that I want the officials to do when they're officiating a game of ice hockey. The first one is I want them to get off the ice in a relatively similar state to how they went onto the ice. Now, asking them to be exactly the same would be impossible because they'll be knackered after skating around for the better part of 2 hours. But I want the refs to get out there. I want them to be able to do their job, be safe, and get off and not get injured. And that's number one. Number two, I want them to be able to keep the players safe, because actually that is one of the things about about officiating. I want the refs to be able to do that job, look after the players in the way that they're supposed to, without too many things going wrong. The rink like falling down around their ears. The third thing I asked for is a level of consistency. I want something that was a penalty in the first second of the first period to be a penalty in the last second of the last period. And obviously a chunk of that's down to interpretation. And I think that, obviously every ref is different from the other, and to ask them all to be completely uniform across 60 minutes of every game and then across every game of every season, so that's unrealistic. But if something is a penalty then, I want it to be a penalty then and then and then. Now, obviously, it's not a case of calling everything, because actually every situation will be different. And if two guys are holding each other's sticks and mucking around, well, you either call both or you call nothing. That's an acceptable thing there. But I want that level of consistency. I want the things to be treated in a good similar way. And I want to be able to work out from my thing as the paying audience member, as the person writing this up. I want to be able to see the line kind of go through the game. And the fourth thing I want refs to do is I want them to make the calls right. I want them to do well, and I want them to make sure that if they're calling something, if it's a trip, it's a trip. If it's a charge, it's a charge. If it's an elbow, it's an elbow. That's kind of the where I am. And I struggled with this on Saturday, mostly for this kind of consistency element. And people have bad days at the office, and that's fine. That's how officiating works. And not everybody's going to be perfect on every day. That's not that to ask people to be perfect is not reasonable. But asking people to not impact either the enjoyment, the flow, or the result of the game. Now, I don't think they've impacted the result of the game, but they definitely impacted my enjoyment. It definitely impacted the flow. And I think that's kind of where I have a problem with that game. The flip side of this, of course, is one of the things that we do see very, very rarely. And all credit here has to go to Tim Pickett for this. I have in the past, in my writing, been critical of Tim Pickett because I'm not a big fan of how he necessarily manages the game. I'm not a big fan of his game management style, and I'll be honest about that. But in the situation in Basingstoke's game in Romford, which the Raiders pretty comprehensively won, better team won, that's how that happens. But there was a point where Romford had goal disallowed, effectively because Jordan Lauday wasn't ready. And you can see from the video clip that Lauday is still skating back to his net, and the referees have dropped the puck. Now, face-off procedure, being what it is, they should check that the goalies are ready before they do that. Everybody needs to kind of be static and ready to go. And it is in the rules. It's not a courtesy thing. That's in the rules. And people were like, what's going on? And this, that, and the other. And Jamie McElroy, of course, friend of the show, tweeted out something about this. And Tim Pickett, to his credit, poked his head above the parapet and said, we got it wrong. This is why we got it wrong. This is what we did to rectify it. And you know what? Fair play. Fair play to the man. He didn't have to do it. Didn't need to do it. Was under no obligation to do it, but did it. And not just did it, not just, didn't DM Mac and then Mac sort of shared it around. Open Twitter, into the public sphere, said, put his hand up, we got it wrong. And you know what? Fair play to him for it. Deserves a lot of credit. And for whatever strange reason, right? People are really scared in this day and age of admitting that they're wrong. And it shouldn't be that bad of a thing to admit that you're wrong. The magnitude of your mistake can be, very large. We can make really big mistakes in our lives, and it can cost us time, friendships, family, people, much more than that. We all know this. However, the best way to progress from a mistake is to admit the mistake if you've made it. And actually, you know what? Tim Pickett has been refereeing for a really long time, but you never stop developing. And actually, not only will he benefit, will he have benefited himself from realizing that, because now the next time he's going to check, but it's every young official after him that knows that happened. I need to check that before I do that. Massive teaching moment for all of us, actually, and fair play. we can complain about refs until the cows come home, and we will, because that's what being a sports fan is. But I have to tip my hat to Tim Pickett for that. He deserves a lot of credit for doing something that a lot of us probably wouldn't have done in the same situation. A lot of people would have made a mistake and would have hidden, and maybe I would have done that myself in that circumstance, but he didn't, and he definitely deserves a round of applause or a shake of the hand or whatever for knowing that we can complain about the officials and be grumpy about the officials and have justifiable criticisms of them, but they are human and they are learning. And they do care. I think this last one I find is really interesting. They're not fussed about who wins and who loses, but they care about the game. And actually, for Tim Pickett to do that shows just how much he cares about the sport. That he's like, I got it wrong, and this is how we're going to move on. What have we got in the chat about that? How can Marcel Balach go to Romford twice and get a match penalty for slew footing both times? I don't know. Internally, people I've spoken to from within the Bison were not happy about either. They don't think it was a slew foot on either occasion. I haven't had a chance to look at the video yet. No one sent it to me, so I need to poke some people about that, see if I can have a look at it. I shared this on Hockey Freaks in a discussion whether it was the fault of the refs or the sentiment. I mean, arguably a bit of both, but I think it more has the referees are the ones restarting the game. The sentiment don't start the game, so I think if you're picking one of the two, I think you pick that one. Fair play to him, yeah, 100%. Really easy to bash the refs, and I know we'll all have referees that we prefer over others, but to see any of them be really, really open, really honest, and just kind of go, I made a mistake. Here's what I did was wrong. Here's why I rectified it. And like I say, it's not even just so much about him doing that, but it's the lesson that gets learned by every other official afterwards, because the officials talk. Officials talk to each other. And stuff gets shared around from IHUK about this. It's a great teaching moment about honesty, accountability, duty of candor, however you want to frame it. I think it's really, really good. And I was having been really quite cross, and I still am a little bit about Saturday evening and how the game was handled on Saturday. So then the flip side of that, just kind of like, and it's not that I ever sort of lost my respect for the officials, but that bit of extra nuance about the sort of people we have officiating the game in this country, it's good. It is really good, and hopefully we will see more of it. And I'm not saying they need to kind of like profusely apologise for every mistake, but in a situation where everybody was confused about why something had happened, clarified it, explained it, and we can kind of say thank you very much, and on we move. And that's kind of what we're after. The other thing I kind of want to talk about, like I say, for those of you who missed it at the beginning, shots is the word on the fridge today. And we're going to touch this, but we're going to touch this now, rather than kind of doing it in a moment when we start looking at the results and bits and pieces like that. Because boy, oh boy, did a couple of goalies have a night of it on her over the weekend. Seems like Romford has seamlessly. For the first time I ever heard of it was back in NIHL Div 1. Max Bray also got a match for it. Yeah, I'd be interested to hear who the official was on that one, but we'll see what if you can find that out, that'd be great to go. But yeah, a bit of crazy nights in the south in the NIHL. Saturday evening, NIHL Division 2, and like I said, we'll mention it in a bit. But a massive win for the Chelmsford Warriors. They win 4-3 over Guildford in overtime, obviously denting the Phoenix's chance of repeating as league champions. But Luca Tasadri. Now, Luca Tasadri has obviously been doing a few bits and pieces. Obviously, he's been impacted a little bit by Petr Cech coming into the Chieftains. But being able to sort of isolate a lot of time for the Warriors is also very, very good for this young man's development. 77 saves on 80 shots and then winning in the shootout for Luca Tasadri. That's pretty good. Fair play to him for it. That's pretty impressive. I've obviously seen a fair few, sort of high shot games in my time, and that is a hell of a lot of fun. It can be fun or it can not be fun. It's definitely fun when you win. I did ask him how he was still standing up, and then of course, Craig Bradfield of the Milton Keynes Thunder says, Luca Tasadri, hold my beer, but don't drink it because you're not old enough. MK go down 12. I have it as 12 to 2, I believe, at home against Streatham. Bradfield made 95 saves on 107 shots. 107 shots Bradfield faced, and he made 95 saves. 95 saves and 107. That is ridiculous. That is absurd numbers. How that lad has not got rubber poisoning or just turned into a tire by osmosis. 100 shots. I cannot remember off the top of my head the last 100-shot game in the NIHL by one side. And I'm pretty like we've seen plenty of penalty minute games over that point. We've seen teams get over 100 penalty minutes on their own. We've seen the odd game occasionally back in the day, and probably on the Isle of Wight or Gosport, go over 100 shots combined. But 107 shots from one team. I have never seen it. I don't remember it at all. I don't know whether Joe Scutts has those numbers to hand. I don't think his stats personally go back that far. All things considered, crazy numbers. I've only got water in my bottle, but Luca and Craig, have yourself. Hopefully, those boys bought you a beer after that. Even though Luca, I still believe is 17 and is underage. You know what? Somebody go to a pub and buy him a meal, and he can have a beer with it there. I don't care. 100% needs to be credited for just the sheer volume of rubber. That is more shots than Ibiza in August. That is just firstly, where is your D gone? and secondly, just fair play, lads. You can't knock that at all. Hell of a performance from both of you guys. Well done. Congratulations to both of them. And a big thanks, of course, to Joe Scutts from NIHL Stats for making sure that we all saw those numbers, because that's just mental. That is crazy. Anyway, my his dad's appeared. Fabrizio, my man. Don't give him ideas. You know as well as I do. He's a hockey player. He's well past needing to be given the ideas about where to get beer from, my friend. He is, but hopefully he's all right. And fair play to the lad. What a weekend! But yeah, anyway, we need to look back, not even just to last weekend. We need to look back to last Thursday night, because MK, Milton Keynes Lightning. I am so sorry. And for those of us who are a little bit older, we might remember the old advert. You know when you've been tangoed. Well, my friends, you know when you've been slavered. Headley in net, full strength roster, semi-final, first leg of the National Cup, final score, MK 0, Peterborough 1. What a slavering. Jordan Marr with a 33-shot shutout in Milton Keynes in the Cup semi-final. I mean, even I, as somebody who notoriously does not like the style that Peterborough play, even I have to tip my hat to that. What a performance by the Phantoms in Milton Keynes for that game. Will Weldon with the lone goal of the game, a power play marker in the second period. Weldon from Spears from Norton, hell of a way to it's a pretty a captain's goal at a massive time. And the Peterborough goal was deflected in off an MK player. Sums it up really. Yeah, it's always the way. However, 1-0, I think as Peterborough fans will even appreciate, even Kev in the chat who's a Peterborough fan will appreciate, that's not enough of a lead, unfortunately. Milton Keynes are far too powerful with the firepower. And yeah, Friday night, they're both coming. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm really interested to see how Peterborough do this, because here's something for you. You're not going to sit back and hold on for 60 minutes against that MK roster. Peterborough are going to have to come out of their shell ever so slightly and try and get at least another couple of goals here, because as we'll talk about in a little bit, Milton Keynes do know how to score, and like I say, we'll touch on that momentarily. But then, of course, go to Friday night and the other semi-final first leg from the National Cup semi-finals, and a relatively comfortable win over in Sheffield for the Leeds Knights. Obviously now in the post Grant Cooper era, all couple of months of it that it was. Now he seems to be ticking along quite nicely over in Belfast. But a 5-2 win for the Knights and a massive breakout third period from Leeds as well. Scoreless first period. Vlad Volkanov's, and I mean, it says Bailey Perry. Was it Bailey Perry, or is the game sheet having a funny 5 minutes again? But either way, 1-1 at the end of the second period. And then Brooks, Hayward, and Brown unsurprisingly managed to get goals in this one. One of Brown's first goal of the night for a shorthander to make it 4-1. That pretty much killed off the game. Lee Bonner does get a goal back before Brown adds a late goal to make it 5-2. Now, I feel a bit bad for Sheffield in this one because I don't mind Sheffield. I don't mind how Sheffield play. Again, Sheffield, very much a team like Romford. You kind of know what we're getting. And I quite like that. Sheffield are quite niggly, so are Romford. But you know that they're going to do it. There's no subterfuge. There's no pretense or anything like that. Yeah, and good to see Jason Hewitt back as well. Obviously, we'll talk about that because he obviously had an impact on some of the bits and pieces over the weekend. But either way, we have both semi-finals quite nicely poised. You'd put money on Leeds to go through over Sheffield, especially being the fact that second leg will be at Ellen Road. Peterborough and MK in Peterborough. It does. The location certainly fancies Peterborough. Bretton is not a nice place to go, but that MK roster knows how to fire on all cylinders, as we found out on Saturday night, because MK clearly feeling that they had a point to prove, having been shut out at home in a cup semi-final. Interestingly, both teams at the top of the table in both divisions, the Elite League, the team that was top of the Elite League got shut out in the first leg of their cup semi-final because Guildford got shut out by Belfast, and then Milton Keynes, who were top of the table, got shut out by Peterborough, and then they responded by going into Saturday evening against the Bristol Pitbulls, and no mercy. There was no mercy for anyone at all. MK Lightning with the 15-2 win at home against Bristol. What a shellacking. That is ridiculous. That is how you respond. I don't know if it was a 15-goal game. Like, I've seen teams play worse in our rink this season. It was just a strange game. But what statement to make, though, I think is probably the way you can kind of look at it on that front. Because that game on Thursday was a lot bigger than the game on Saturday, with all due respect to Bristol. Big for MK in terms of the league title picture because, Leeds with all these games in hand. Peterborough still chasing. MK kind of need to keep their league form up. But Thursday night was a big game, and MK fluffed their lines a little bit. So to come out and to put a team to the sword is one thing. That's a different kettle of fish. That's just say no, we are done with your shenanigans. A 5-assist night for Tim Wallace, a hat trick for Bobby Chamberlain, and into the bargain. Goals for 14 different point scorers. Dan Crowe with another decent performance. I think it was 20 saves on 22 shots for him. And Paul Tyler Perry faces 40 shots into the third period before getting pulled for Ethan Frayne. Although nice to see Ethan Frayne still managing to hang around and get some time. But yeah, oh dearie me, that will not have been fun to be out there. A 6-goal first period and a 6-goal third period from the Lightning that just absolutely shellac the Bristol Pitbulls. Bases, we've already talked about it. Bison 3, Raiders 5. Bison goals coming from George Norcliffe, Alex Sanford, and Marcel Balach. Goals for the Raiders, a couple from Aaron Connolly, including the empty net winner, as well as goals for Ashley Jackson, Mateo Gomacic, and the game winner from Harry Gulliver, which, to be fair to Harry Gulliver, he took incredibly well. It was a very, very well taken goal. The Bison will be kicking themselves in this one. They had this one at one stage, but credit to the Raiders for not giving up. Also credit to Ethan James. He had a very wobbly first period and recovered very, very nicely by the third period to make some really, really crucial saves. Yeah, Pitbulls are missing Curlin, Sobchuk, and Kelly, so they're 3 best players. Yeah, Sobchuk is hurt, and I don't know how long he's going to be out for either. There's some talk he could be in a bit of trouble in terms of being injured for some time. Either way, we move on. We move on from Saturday. Peterborough, of course, coming off of their impressive result against MK in the Cup semi-final, took on one of the other semi-finalists. They headed up to Sheffield and a 4-2 win for the Phantoms against the Steel Dogs. Steel Dogs actually with the lead at the end of the first period. Lee Hayward with the goal there, but then a 4-goal outburst. 2 in the second, 2 in the third. Glenn Billing, Lucas Sludkowski getting one in the second, 1 in the third, and a goal for Duncan Spears, making it 4-1. A late consolation from Vlad's Volkanovs for the Steel Dogs, but not enough there. Peterborough take the points in that one. Just trying to find the other game sheets because it's all a bit of a mess. Telford actually got a win. Well done to them. It's been the first time they've won in a little bit, and they pick up a 4-3 win away in Slough against the Bees. Brendan Walcombe hat-trick, not enough in this one. Finley Howells, Scott McKenzie, and then a really late equaliser in this game from Rory Herman, the new import there in Telford. Obviously, Jason Silverthorne done for the year. Herman released by the Cardiff Devils, although it looks like a case of we're not going to keep you on. Let's try and find you a team. And Todd Kelman appears to have done Tom Watkins a solid there. But Herman scoring with about 77 seconds left in the game to take things into the extras. It goes all the way to the shootout. A few goals back and forward in this one, but Vladimir Luka with the crucial goal in the shootout. He's to give Telford 2 points, their first win in quite some time. It's still only their second win in the last 16. The other game then from Saturday. Well, we do love our friends from Hull. 30 goals for Walker now. A very impressive stat, very impressive player. But yeah, so in Swindon, Hull had a long journey down to Swindon. And actually, end of the first period, it was a tale of burning your old employers. Tomasz Malazinski putting the Wildcats ahead, but Emil Svek back in Swindon, tying it up at 1 apiece. But then if Malazinski isn't going to score, pretty much can guarantee Aaron Nell will. A goal in the second and a goal in the third from the Cats player head coach, and a 3-1 win for Swindon over the Seahawks. What we will do then is try and fiddle. I'm deliberately trying to navigate through Sportal to do some of these bits and pieces because I want to get used to using the Sportal page. Bristol and MK, of course, then met on Sunday as well, and a bit of an improved performance from Bristol, you could say, in the sense that they kept Milton Keynes within single figures, but a 4-1 win for the Lightning in this one. A big 4-point weekend for them in league action, if nothing else. Liam Stewart, 2 goals from Sean Norris and 1 from Sam Talbot, making it 4-0 to the Lightning by the 40-minute mark. A lone goal in the third period as a consolation for the Pitbulls from Jay Warren. A 0-point weekend for the Pitbulls as a result, which of course does help the Basingstoke Bison because they ended up losing 7-2 away in Romford. Romford, who, like I say, they had a very good spell of about sort of 10 minutes in the third period in Basingstoke, but kind of felt like they had lost their way for large chunks of the game. It felt like the Bison had very much kind of had a hold on things until they were able to kind of sort of wrestle it back after some interesting penalty calling in my personal opinion. But either way, them's the breaks, and Romford then put Basingstoke very, very handily to the sword on the Sunday, even with goals washed out because people weren't ready. Ashley Jackson, Aaron Collingwood, and Mikey Power putting the Raiders 3-0 up in the first period before Zach Milton got the Bison on the board, and then Roberts with a couple of Alex Roberts with a couple of goals in the third and a second of the night for Jackson, making it 6-2 against the goal from George Norcliffe, and then in the third, just the lone goal right at the death, Mateo Gomicic, making it 7-2. And ending and definitely just putting an exclamation point on the game. Like I say, from a Basingstoke perspective, very frustrating. So I felt they were the better side over the 60 minutes in Basingstoke the night before, and just came out on the wrong side. And then Romford have got them back at home and just giving them a bit of a kicking there. The top 20 point scorers, only Luca and Lubuele from outside the top 5 are in there, which would make sense, I suppose. A lot of offense has gone through both those guys. Lubuele, I think people in Hull like Lubuele, but yeah, Vladimir Luka for me has been a bit of an unsung hero. I don't know whether Luka gets into all-star contention, but he's been, for me, I think he's been really good this year. Arguably better than last season in some ways because he's been relied on to do more. Swindon and Leeds met in the latest instalment of the now Classico up at Ellen Road, and to be fair, quite a comfortable win for the Knights in the end. It was a bit tight and testy to start with though. Only Leeds 1-0 up with a goal coming in the last minute of the first period from Sam Zajac. Tomasz Malazinski evening things up at 1 apiece in the second before Leeds just went, nah, mate, we're done with this. 4-1 by the end of the second, thanks to Kieran Brown and 2 goals from Cole Shudra. Zach Brooks makes it 5-1, at which point, going back into the game, Swindon decided to have a funny 5 minutes and pulled the netminder on the power play with about 5.5 minutes to go. So Matt Hayward's short-handed empty net goal came with 4:38 left in the game. A late goal as well from Carter Hamill to just put a bit of an exclamation point on things and just continue Swindon's weird whiplash of a season that makes no sense to anybody. How you try and write a review of this season for them is going to baffle me. Telford then back home, obviously winning against the Bees down in Slough. Not so lucky against the Sheffield Steel Dogs, who of course coming off of their semi-final first leg loss and coming off a loss to Peterborough the next night. They kind of needed a win to get things up and running for them. They were 2-0 ahead though. Scott McKenzie with both goals in the first period, and then Jason Hewitt back on the ice after his injury made it 2-1. Late in the first. Lee Bonner and Alex Graham then gave the Steel Dogs back the lead. Brody Jessen ties it up at 3 apiece with just before the halfway mark, but 2 goals in the third from Alex Graham, 1 on the power play with 66 seconds to play in the game, and then an empty net goal shortly afterwards. A 5-3 win for the Dogs puts that one to bed. We'll just very, very quickly then pull up the NIHL National Division table whilst we have a look at the comments. Malazinski, 77 points in 37 games, which is pretty impressive, all things considered. But how much of that offense goes through Swindon? Again, we did look at it last week, didn't we, where we wondered about the depth scoring, and it wasn't as bad as we thought it was. But yeah, it's Swindon conceding a lot of goals and just ending up kind of losing a lot of games as a result. Either way, we need to look at the table now in the National Division. So there has been a little bit of shuffling around. MK, though, 4-point weekend, still top and with a vastly improved goal difference as a result of it. 61 points from 37 games, following second by the Leeds Knights, who have 60 points, but they've played 34. That is really, the Knights are going to have to choke this pretty hard to give this one away. Also on 60 points are the Peterborough Phantoms. 60 points from 37 games. So still very much in the mix if something does go awry. Should also be noted, those top 3 teams between them. MK have scored 181 goals, Leeds 187, Peterborough 180. Probably helped by some very, very sizable wins. And MK, of course, well, yeah, 15 goals in a game will probably help you out a bit. The drop down then is pretty sizable. It's a 12-point gap between Peterborough in third and Sheffield in fourth. The Dogs have 48 from 35. Swindon, 41 from 37. Raiders, 39 from 35. They're starting to claw themselves back up into the middle of the pack a bit more. Telford then, the drop down then from the Raiders to the Tigers is 12 points, 27 points from 37. So 12-point gap between 6th and 7th. The Basingstoke Bison, 25 from 36, are in 8th spot at the moment. The Pitbulls are on 25 points from 37, but they are on the outside looking in. And then there is a bit of a drop down. The Bees in 10th, 18 from 36, and Hull, 15 from 37. So that's the National Division done. Comments, questions, anything anybody kind of wants to chuck in there in the mix before we start looking at the other divisions of the NIHL. Remember, Leeds have 6 games in 9 days in mid-February. Here's the thing, right? And I always think about when people mention about this and mention about schedules and so on and so forth, that when the Basingstoke Bison won the EPL in 2015-16, they played a similar stretch of games around this point of the year. In fact, it might have even been slightly later in the year, February into March, where it was either 6 in 9 or 6 in 10. It was a really, really tight spate of games, really close together. And Aaron Conley, who was captain of the Bison at the time, said, we want to be busy. We want to keep playing. We want to keep rolling. We don't want to stop because you just keep having that momentum and you keep going and you keep going. And also as well for Leeds, like if Leeds were in 6th or 7th, like that's a burden. That's a burden for you. You'd hate having to do that if you were that far down the table. But Leeds have got their eyes on the prize here. And if I'm enjoying my hockey and I'm playing well, I don't want to be resting. I want to be playing. And 6 in 9 is going to be tough for them. Don't get me wrong. It's going to take a lot of physical intensity. It's going to take a lot of emotional energy as well to be able to do that. But I think this Leeds team can do it. I'd be really interested to see. So if you think that's 6 games, that's 12 points. What constitutes a bad result there? I'd say anything below 6 in that front, on that front. Because for me, though, I think that there is that Leeds, if they come out the other side of this, if they come out with anything over 8 or 9 points out of this period, you probably, if I'm Leeds, I want a minimum of 10. But you can probably live with 8 or 9. If Leeds can do that, I think they probably win the title. I think it'll be very, very close. But don't look at the having lots of games element as being a bad thing, particularly when you're playing well. Because Leeds, even though they lost both those games to Peterborough, they're playing well, and they just won a semi-final, and then they just given Swindon a bit of a poke as well into the bargain. Like don't run it out. Don't think too hard on that one because you might end up sort of knocking yourself on the foot on that one. Obviously, Jamie, of course, you want Milton Keynes to win. I still think the money is very, very firmly on Leeds at the moment. Niall, Hull gave Matty Davis a good send-off with his retirement. Shame we couldn't get that win. Yeah, a massive shame for Matty. Personally, I'm a little annoyed at Leeds. Why just score a 7? Because then the scoreboard would have said 2 and 6 at the end of it, you greedy gets. What would be people's thoughts on a shorter season but more regional cup competition? I don't really know on that front. If the national division was in the same format it is now, I don't think it matters because we obviously have a cup competition that predicates itself on that first home, first away game against everybody. What would your idea be though, Sigala? Because if we're talking about I can see it strengthening North-South rivalries, prepare the league for a North-South divide like D1 and D2 and more clubs join teams in Scotland, for example. As long as you're not expecting D1 teams to play national division teams. I see this happen so many times. Let's have an ice hockey version of the FA Cup. And it's always a terrible plan. I don't want Basingstoke playing an elite league team. We'd lose by a cricket score. What would be the point? Nobody would go. It would be ridiculous. I don't think there'll be a North-South divide in the national division because there's a difference between having a conference and having a split. Because the whole idea of there being conference play is like it is in the NHL. Washington play the New York Rangers more times than they play the Seattle Kraken, but they will play the Seattle Kraken. No, good. Planet Ice account issues. I mean, that's a frustration, I think, and it's nice in some ways that they've bothered to do it. They've gone right. Here's the problem. We've done it. They haven't tried to squirrel it away, and actually they've kept. Things aren't working. They've kept it offline until they can get it to work properly. I'm all right with that. Planet Ice can, justifiably get a kicking for quite a lot of things, but actually, in terms of sound business practice, actually for once they've actually really done really well there. I can't argue this. More rumours today that Dundee and Fife are going to play out of the Elite League at the end of the season. If they do, they won't be joining the NIHL National Division. So they're not letting in Solway. I don't think they're going to let in Dundee or Fife. I mean, they're even further north. I like the PI took the time to help people to protect themselves. Yeah, and to be fair, that's just, aside from being good optics, I think they legally have to tell people those kind of things. But good on them for being, it's much more open and honest and much more open, certainly, than PI ever usually are on such things. Can't wait for playoffs. Should be a good weekend. It'll be amazing. I've got my accommodation sorted out already, which is my friend's spare room, because that's what I always do. Love them to pieces, and I'm always really thankful that they let me stay at their house, because it's just a very different way of doing it. Particularly as well, I've become sort of more involved in this kind of hockey like coverage of the weekend kind of thing, actually to not be sort of in the middle of Coventry while everything's going on, and not being in a hotel, and being in my friend's house and having my friends and having a real place to kind of decompress. Actually, kind of what's going on is really, really, it's important for me. It's important for my mental health, I think, if nothing else. I think if someone could join, if another Scottish club joins too, but could a 13, 14 team league work? 14 would work. I'm not having 13. That's just silly. Could it open the door to talk of a BNL style league though? Potentially, yeah, but I don't think that. But you're not going to get Romford or teams like that jump from 2 imports to 6 or anything like that. So I think people need to be careful there. We'll just have a quick look at one question I did have come in on the Twitter before we look at the other divisions, from our friend Tony DeMacro, who I know generally doesn't watch live, Tony, but he generally watches on repeat. So hi, Tony. Hey, thanks for messaging in. Do you think anyone from the NHL should have been included in the GB squad? If so, who? I made a point of. So I know a lot of people are sort of like, this Euro hockey challenge, wondering that we should have tested out more players on the fringe, some younger guys. Obviously, we saw Scott Conway opting out of playing because he wanted to make sure he had a rest because, the fact that things are very busy. Conway is 99.999% going to Worlds unless he gets hurt. So fair play to him as well. I mean, sort of saying, actually, you know what, for my own sanity, I'm just going to have a break. At this point, and giving Pete Russell the opportunity to look at some different style people. But I did make the point that what I would have liked is seeing some of those younger guys. For me, I don't understand if you're taking Jordan Headley why you wouldn't take Sam Gospel instead of him, because Gospel is the better netminder now. And I think sometimes people focus, but I get why they've done it with Jordan Headley. They're used to having him around. Everybody knows him, and they are not building a squad for the future in this game. One of the things that people have complained about with GB is that, we just shove everything together at the end of the season and there's, it takes some time to gel and to mesh. And by then we're behind the 8 ball and we need to do this, that, and the other. And actually, you know what? The excuses are now gone. Stuart Coles, the Coventry Blaze webcast commentator, who I retweeted his thoughts, his bits and pieces on this. Like, that is all gone now. Those excuses are gone. I said that winning this World Championships is a bigger thing right now for them than staying up in Worlds last year, because if we want to get back to the top tier in this generation of players before guys retire, like Bounds, like Richardson, and so on and so forth, that actually this is the time to do it. Like, we need to get back and actually do what they're doing now. Is they're doing all the things that we haven't done before. They're using the international break. They're forming a core of players that, you might have some guys on the periphery swapped in and out, or guys will get injured and you bring somebody else in, but guys who will be able to do the majority, know how each other play, doing all those big things together. And that is what is going to get GB a win at these Worlds, because they need to win. And they have to be big about doing that too. Rumours true, both Fife and Dundee pull out. What would he mean for the IHL? 19 league, I mean, it's better than 8. Could I encourage Manchester to pull out too? I really don't think. I'd be very, very interested. Like, there's always been talk about the Scottish teams pulling out, but there's always been talk about Basingstoke being refurbished, and we know how that goes. But I would be very, very interested. I don't think the Elite League would let that many teams drop, in the sense that I think if the Scottish teams pulled out, I don't think they'd mind too much, if I'm 100% honest. That's just a personal opinion. I have nothing to base that on. But I think they would work really hard to keep Manchester in the league. If Fife and Manchester automatically said we're done, I think they would kind of like look at who was like left over and work really hard to keep them there, because the Elite League needs at least 10. So I think it's really important for them to kind of to work with that. But yeah, they will work really hard to keep teams in this league, I think. Anyway, we need to look at the other divisions around the National Ice Hockey League. And so what we usually do, we'll go up into the north, into North 1, where the storyline really, there's been a couple of storylines really in North 1, one of which is the great D-side Dragons catch-up as they attempt to go and play everybody in the space of a couple of minutes, and then try and get as many points and claw themselves as high up the table as they can. Didn't go so well for them on Saturday evening, as a short bench Dragons travelled the Holbsmet Road to take on the Solihull Barons, and the hosts come away with a 10-2 win. Not a great one there for the And not a great one there for the Dragons as they look to try and make a dent into the playoff places themselves. The other game from Saturday was the second leg of the Cup semi-final. We already knew it was Billingham into the final, and we knew that following their 5-1 win, that Solway were probably going to join them. They definitely joined them. They won 11-2 away in Widnes. That's a bit of a kicking at home as well, which is even worse. I feel a bit sorry for Widnes on that one there. But yeah, so it will be Solway taking on Billingham in the North 1 Cup final. But what of the Stars? They played on Sunday at home against the Warriors, and they've done it again. The Stars beat the Warriors by 4-2 and put Solway firmly in the driving seat when it comes to the North 1 League title. D-side, well, they've got a bit of a recovery, having had a bad night in Solihull. They were at home against the somewhat luckless Sheffield Scimitars, who've been awful this year, just the 1 point, and they stay on that 1 point. A 6-4 win for the Dragons at home in that one. And then the Barons, well, they were made to work for a 4-point weekend, but they did get it in the end. A 6-5 win for the Barons in overtime against the Widnes Wild on Sunday. Solihull have been on a really decent run as of late, and getting wins like that, especially against those teams who are kind of in the middle of the pack, like Widnes, is really, really important for them. Either way, like we said, that loss for Whitley puts Solway firmly in the driving seat, having not played in the league this weekend. They are 33 from 18. Whitley are 31 from 19. So the Sharks in a position where they can fully extend that lead. Both sides, interestingly, have won all of their home games in the league. They are both 10 from 10 at home. Third place is Billingham. They are 5 points behind Whitley, 26 from 21. Solihull, 25 from 18. So the Stars, having not had some great results at times, means that the Barons, though, with 3 games in hand, well on course to steal third place away from Billingham. Widnes, they're in 5th, 20 from 18. Blackburn, 15 from 19. D-side, 13 from 14, given the fact they got a win this weekend. And Nottingham, well, it looks like Nottingham are going to be saved from the wooden spoon in North 1 by just the sheer bad time that Sheffield are having. Nottingham have 8 from 17. Sheffield have just 1 point from their 20 games played this year. Interested to see how many points Finley Braden has for Billingham this year. Should we have a look quickly? Because I think I'm pretty certain that Joe's stats are all up to date. So we will have a quick squiz at that. So if you aren't familiar, nhlstats.wordpress.com for Joe. He has the goods, as it were. Braden, 21 games played, 15 plus 5 for 20 points in 21 games for Finley Braden. Top scorer for the Stars at the moment is Chris Sykes. 19 games played, 17 goals, 17 assists, 34 points is your answer there, Jamie. Anyway, we move into South 1. Of course, we've already talked about one of the games, but we'll briefly mention it again in a minute. But Saturday, a fair few, but obviously back to league action now that we know it'll be Invicta versus Chelmsford in the Cup final. Invicta back in action and a pretty solid 4-0 win at home for them against the Oxford City Stars to keep their good bit of momentum going. Romford had a pretty decent win themselves against the MK Thunder. 6-1 win for the Junior Raiders at Sapphire Ice and Leisure. And as Solent, well, they tried to keep pace with Streatham. A 5-1 win for them at home in Gosport against the Jets will certainly help. Sunday then, well, what turned out to be the last game in charge of the Chieftains for Mark Saunders, a 6-3 loss at home to Invicta, and that is the end of Saunders' tenure as coach of the Chieftains. Obviously, coming across from the Romford Junior Raiders last season. But yeah, it just hasn't seemed to have worked. Although somewhat of a bizarre contradictory statement from the owners of the Chieftains, talking about wanting a rebuild and then results not being what they're after. You kind of need to pick one of those two, given how normally how rebuilds work in ice hockey there, fellas. Not sure what's happening there. Either way, we wish Mark all the best. I'm sure he will land on his feet with the coach of those talents. MK, as we talked about, MK putting up losing 107 shots and a 12-2 loss to Streatham, who, of course, keep themselves firmly ensconced at the top of the table. Oxford get a point at home against Solent. They managed to push the Devils all the way, but Alex Murray tying things up late, and then an overtime winner for the Devils. They take the 2 points in a game that Oxford will be kicking themselves for having thrown away. Slough then, they also get a win. Only a 2-point weekend for the Romford Junior Raiders. The Jets win by 3-1 against the Raiders there. So what that leaves us with in South 1, though, as we said, is very much Streatham to lose again. Unbeaten on the road, Streatham. They have lost at home, haven't lost away, interestingly. But 32 from 17, just the one loss all season for the Red Hawks. Solent have 28 from 19. As I said, the ball is very much in Coach Ben Painter's court. Slough Jets, 19 from 16, are in third place, followed by Invicta, who have 18 from 17. Chelmsford, now coachless, have 17 from 18 in fifth. Romford, 12 from 14 in sixth. Oxford, 8 from 15. They obviously got their point. But MK are still within touching distance. They have 7 points from 16 games played. They are definitely not out of it yet, though. They could avoid the wooden spoon. Warren Ronker Saunders in Chelmsford. They just didn't see. I think, as we've sort of seen as the season's kind of gone on, that Chelmsford have just kind of sort of lost games we arguably reckon they should have won with the quality of squad that they had. It just doesn't, sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And unfortunately, for all the things that they tried, it just didn't seem to work for them. And sometimes you can't. It's not very easy to put your finger on those results. Into North 2, and of course, one of the bigger games, arguably across the entirety of the NIHL structure over the past weekend. In the fact that Hull and Telford met in Hull and a 4-3 win for the Jets. These two sides will face each other twice more in the league across this season. A massive, massive result for Hull. They needed the win, and they got the win at home in what I'm told was a fantastic game. Sutton, though, they also got a pretty decent win themselves. They win 7-1 on the road in Bradford last Saturday. And then a couple of games from Sunday. Not a good weekend for any of the smaller sides, Sheffield sides. The Shimatars lose and the Titans lose. They lose 3-0 at home to the Altrincham Aces. A good road win there for the Aces as they look to maintain their third place spot. And then it was free to watch on YouTube. Even had commentary this one for the Nottingham Lions against the Coventry and NHL Blaze, and a decent result for the Blaze. They win 4-2 at the CCM pad at the NIC. So what that means in terms of the table, like I said, we've been watching and we've been keeping an eye on what's been happening between Telford and Hull. But that win, massive for the Jets. Tigers, 32 from 18. Jets, 28 from 16. Win those games in hand, and they are level on points. And it starts getting into the nitty-gritty of tiebreakers between the Tigers and the Jets. The Aces are in third. They're 8 points back of Hull, 20 from 17. Sheffield, after their defeat, they remain on 17 points from 18. The Sutton are up to 17 points. They've played 17 games, could easily take fourth. But Coventry aren't going away either. Another good win for them, 16 points from 18 games. The Blaze, if things go their way, could easily get themselves all the way up into fourth spot. The Nottingham Lions have 9 points from 18. Bradford, though, do have games in hand. They have 8 points from 16 games played. So we'll bash through then into South 2 and look at the bits and pieces. There. Because of course, like I say, we did talk about that one game from Saturday and a massive blow for the Guildford Phoenix as they lose in the shootout despite putting 80 shots on Lucas Tasadri. The Warriors win it by 4-3. Made even worse for the Phoenix by results elsewhere. Bristol win 10-4 at home against the Basingstoke Buffalo. And then Haringey with a massive win at home against the Swindon Wildcats side, who've actually been on a pretty decent run of form recently. But their decent run halted pretty handily by the Huskies, who won by 10-1. The other result from Saturday was a decent win on the road for the Peterborough Phantoms. They win 5-1 down in the Bay against the Cardiff Fire. Didn't go that well though for the Fire on Sunday in their 2 home game weekend. They lose by 7-4 in their local derby against the Bristol Pitbulls. But then Swindon get back on the horse. A pretty heavy defeat against Haringey. But another team that's been creeping around the title picture in South 2 was the Stretton Blackhawks, but they get dispatched by the Wildcats. A 6-4 win for the Wildcats at home against Streatham. And like I say, there's been a lot of teams sniffing in, hunting around in that South 2 title picture. But at the moment, it is Haringey who sit on top of the pile in South 2 still. They have 29 points from their 17 games played. They have a 3-point cushion over Bristol and Streatham. Bristol have 26 from 16, Streatham 26 from 17. Guildford now down to 4th. They have 25 from 16. Fifth place is Invicta. They have the Invicta Mustangs, 21 from 16 for them. Peterborough with 20 from 15. Swindon with another win gets themselves up to 16 points from 15. Cardiff are in 8th spot. They have 14 from 17. Chelmsford, though, might be on the outside looking in 9th. They have 12 from 16, so a game in hand to at least draw themselves level with the Cardiff Fire. Oxford Rising Stars have 12 from 17. Basingstoke 4 from 14 now after their kicking from Bristol. Lee Valley with their lone win have 2 from 12. The Solent Junior Devils have 1 from 14. So Basingstoke could get drawn even further into that bottom of the table battle. If Lee Valley find a way to win those 2 games in hand, Lee Valley would get their highest league position for, I think, at least 7 or 8 years into the bargain there. But that is it. We've gone through every game in the National Ice Hockey League. 1, 2, North, South, and the National. So questions, comments, anything else anybody wants to chuck into the chat. We're at the hour mark, so we're going to just, like I say, free-form it for a little bit. We'll do the fixtures, and then we'll get out of here for the end of the show. What come back from the Wildcats? Alfie Truitt scoring the equaliser. Best thing about doing the home updates for the Cats on Facebook is that I can small moments and share it around. 1-0 Streatham. Oh, my word, I wasn't aware of this. 3-1 down at the end of the second period, and the Wildcats won that game 6-4. What a result for them! But they have been playing really well recently. I think this is one of the things that we've mentioned it, and we have noticed it a bit, that Swindon started pulling out results actually when it starts coming down to it. I mean, you wouldn't want to bet against some of those teams at the top end of the table for the playoffs, but could Swindon spring a surprise over 2 games to make a finals weekend? You never know. Like, Obviously, being where they are, you're going to get either one of either Haringey, Bristol, Guildford, or Streatham. And if obviously it didn't go very well, but they've beaten Streatham, and they can certainly score some goals. So maybe I don't think you fancy Haringey. You probably don't want to finish 8th in this league. That's probably what I'd say. But either way. Great result there for the Swindon Wildcats second side. Fantastic result for them. Congratulations to them for it. It is a big weekend coming up, Jamie. Of course, we will talk about fixtures momentarily. Just loading them up as we're chatting. But like I say, anything else from the world of hockey? We can go. Like I say, go a bit free form and go all over the shop now. I hope we can at least make it to the final 4, same with the main Cats. Interestingly, I think both are relative outsiders, but depending on who their opposition is, both could do it. I think, interestingly, I would be really interested because if Swindon stay in 5th, if Swindon end up 5th, they get 4th, right? Sheffield over 2 games, it's entirely doable. Entirely doable for them. Strangely, they don't want to come 6th. The joys of Cats versus Pens tomorrow. The joys of Cats versus Pens tomorrow with Tom Wilson injured again, Ovi playing hurt. The Cats just performance having gone properly wonky recently. Not ideal in the slightest. But yeah, I'm really pleased to read that, Sigala, that you're kind of like enjoying getting involved with the Div 2 side. And it's really good. And hopefully, like I say, if they make it to the South 2 weekend, 100% go. And just enjoy the hell out of it, mate. It'd be fantastic to see, and it'd be great as well South 2 has been a really fascinating title race, and I know we talked a fair bit here about that North 2 title race between Hull and Telford and how fascinating it is because nobody else is kind of really in it. And last year, of course, South 2 was pretty fundamentally dull because Guildford just absolutely slaughtered everybody in their path. But obviously, Guildford are not as good this year. Haringey appear to be sort of the front runners, but obviously, there's 4 sides very much in and around that title race. That's more than any other division. National divisions are effectively down to 3 teams. North 1 is a 2-team race. South 1 isn't even that much of a race, really. If you want to be generous, you can say it's 2. North 2 is a 2-team race, and South 2 has a 4-team battle at the top. That's pretty impressive stuff. Do you think Pitbulls get covered for Sobchak as he's out for 6 weeks with a ligament injury? I venture they will have done what everybody would do in this situation, which is give Adam Laysham a phone call. But they will hopefully not make the same mistake and will actually get his registration properly done, not do what MK did. Are they doing North 1 Game 2 at playoffs this year? I think they did that when the Hull Pirates won. They did. There will be That was the old Division 2 final, of course. There will be a Division 1 national final at midday on Sunday of playoff weekend. Of course, we got Solway versus Streatham last year. We might get Sharks versus Redhawks 2 this year as well. Bunch of different factors playing into that one. Going to be fascinating if we can see it again. I keep saying to the EIHA, I really want to commentate on that game if it happens, please. When will the venues for North for the other playoff weekend to be announced? I do not know, but I'll ask the question and I'll see what we say. I venture we'll be told about it soon, relatively soon. But I'll ask the questions and see if I can get an answer for you. Either way, while you guys are chucking more things into the chat for us to talk about, we need to look at the fixtures for this upcoming weekend, where things start on Friday the 27th, 2 days' time, with both second legs of the semi-finals of the National Cup. Leeds Knights and the Sheffield Steel Dogs, Peterborough Phantoms and the MK Lightning. Both games face off at 7:30 p.m. this coming Friday. The Knights have a 5-2 aggregate lead over the Steel Dogs. Peterborough with that 1-0 aggregate lead against the Lightning. Who comes out on top? Like I said, that Peterborough MK game for me is an absolute toss of a coin. Can't call it one way or the other. Into Saturday then, and irrespective, everybody, pretty much everybody, apart from Peterborough, is going to need to rebound quickly, because 3 of the 4 sides from the Friday are playing on the Saturday. 2 6:30 p.m. face-offs this coming Saturday, the 28th of January. One in Basingstoke, the Bison take on the Seahawks, a massive game for both teams when it comes to the playoffs. And at 6:30 in Swindon, the Wildcats take on the Bees. 7 p.m. face-offs in Bristol, they take on Telford, and a 7 p.m. face-off for Milton Keynes. And that's them against the Leeds Knights. If it wasn't a big enough, as Jamie says, he wasn't lying in the chat, folks. A big weekend there for both those sides. 7 p.m. though, that is going to be your main event of Saturday night. A 7:30 p.m. face-off at Ice Sheffield for the Sheffield Steel Dogs against the Raiders. Then on Sunday, a nice early face-off, of course, in Sheffield, because it's Sheffield. They face off at 4:30 p.m. against the Bristol Pitbulls. 5 o'clock at the Hangar for the Bees and the Basingstoke Bison in the local derby there. 5:15 p.m. at Sapphire Ice and Leisure for the Raiders against the Hull Seahawks. They have a double road weekend. And then 5:30 p.m. face-off for the Peterborough Phantoms against the Swindon Wildcats. And 6 p.m. in Telford, Tigers take on the Leeds Knights. We'll move then quickly to North 1. Just pull up the fixtures there, having just pressed the button and gone too far. A few fixtures, of course, in North 1. There always seems to be never seems to be tons and tons, but it just seems to be the way it is. Saturday then, 5:15 p.m. face-off over in North Wales. D-side take on Whitley. 5:30 p.m. at the Forum for the Billingham Stars and the Nottingham Lions. 5:30 p.m. face-off as well in Widnes for them against the Sheffield Scimitars. So the Scimitars look for their first win of the season. And then 7 p.m. at Dumfries, the Solway Sharks take on the Blackburn Hawks. On Sunday, then, the Hawks, having had that trip up to Scotland, well, they're back at home on Sunday evening at 6 p.m. They take on the Billingham Stars. The Nottingham Lions are finally back at home. They have a Sunday evening, 7:15 p.m. face-off, against the Solihull Barons. That'll be live on YouTube, as it usually is. Apologies, a couple of other games I've missed there. A 1 p.m. face-off down at Ice Sheffield for the Sheffield Scimitars against the D-side Dragons. And a 5 p.m. face-off at Hillhead, Whitley take on Widnes. Into South 1 then, as everybody continues their game of catch-up against against Streatham. The two of the sides who are closest to them, both in action on Saturday. A 5 p.m. face-off in Gosport. Solent to take on Chelmsford. Will we have a new Chieftains coach announced by that time? And then a 6:30 p.m. face-off at the Hangar. Slough Jets take on the MK Thunder. Will Slough pull their goalie in an opportune moment again? We'll find out this coming Saturday, won't we? Into Sunday then, the Chieftains head back home. They take on the Oxford City Stars at the Riverside at 6 p.m. And then 2 6:45 p.m. face-offs on Sunday. The MK Thunder against the Invicta Dynamos, and the Streatham Redhawks take on the Romford Junior Raiders. We'll fire up North 2 and see what's happening. See what's happening up there this weekend. Not tons and tons of games actually. A couple of games on Saturday. 5:30 p.m. face-off at the world's most versatile arena for the Hull Jets. They take on the Bradford Bulldogs. A 7 p.m. face-off in Telford. That is their the League Cup semi-final second leg. Altrincham need nothing short of a minor miracle. Telford lead that. Telford versus Altrincham, 7 p.m. Telford lead 10-1 from the first leg. I get a strange feeling that one's probably already kind of decided, to be perfectly honest. You'd think. 7:30 p.m. face-off at the Sky Dome for the Coventry and NHL Blaze. They take on the Sheffield Titans. Just the one game on Sunday, and the Aces are in action again. So having been away in Telford in the Cup on Saturday night, they're at home at 4:15 on Sunday, and they take on the Hull Jets. A win for the Aces, and Hull go right back into that hole that they were, having clawed themselves out of it by beating the Tigers. But the Aces with a real chance to potentially play Kingmaker when it comes to that North 2 title. And then we head into South 2. Just the one game this coming Saturday. Amazingly, somehow still a League and Cup game. It's a 5:30 p.m. face-off at Alexandra Palace for the Haringey Huskies at the top of the table. They take on the Cardiff Fire. Sunday, Basingstoke Buffalo versus Invicta Mustangs. Basingstoke really need a win to avoid being dragged into that title, into that bottom of the table picture. Face-off time says TBC. It'll probably be either 6 or 6:30. You can pretty much guarantee that. Other games then on Sunday at 6:15 p.m. face-off in Oxford. The Rising Stars take on the Solent Junior Devils. Of course, the Junior Devils looking for their first win, having got their first point of the season. And Guildford look to make amends from their shootout loss last weekend, and a big game potentially again in the title picture here. The Phoenix take on the Stratton Blackhawks as both teams looking to push Bristol and Haringey above them. The other game then, well, it's a local derby again. 6:45 p.m. face-off down in Cardiff Bay. The Cardiff Fire take on the Swindon Wildcats. And those are your fixtures for the National Ice Hockey League for across this coming weekend. Have a quick scoop at that. Kev reckons the Phantoms and the Dogs will hit the cup final. I think you're being a bit optimistic. Looks like a 2,500 sellout in MK on Saturday night. 2,000 tickets already sold. Yeah, 2,200 against Bristol, who seem to be really adding some value to the league in terms of people in it. Most likely won't happen, but could we see Lydiard returning to Chelmsford to become player coach? But him being inexperienced and not liking to play far away games, maybe Mo plus Bison. I think Lydiard wouldn't have stepped up if he didn't want to stick with the Bison for the rest of the year, to be perfectly honest. So, yeah, I think Lids is probably going to stay where he is. I'd be interested to see what Chelmsford do. To be perfectly honest, I really don't know. I don't know the Chiefs that well as an organisation to kind of think what they do in that one. Do the Bartlett boys just kind of step into the end of the year until they can find someone? It remains to be seen. Either way, I'm going to make last call because we're well over the hour mark now, heading towards 12 past 9 already. So normally a little bit longer than we like to kind of go for. But great to have everybody sort of in and chatting and bits and pieces this week. Lots and lots of fun as always. And yeah, so a big Friday night, and then a massive Saturday night as well. Big for the cup and then big for the league as well. That MK Leeds game is going to be an absolute cracker, and I will be watching Basingstoke versus Hull because I ain't trading my team for nothing. But yeah, like I say, last call if anyone wants to kind of check anything in. I'm very, very quickly just going to double check the Twitter and just make sure that we haven't missed anything hugely drastic in the last couple of minutes. No, nothing. Not tons and tons and tons of stuff happening by the look of it. GB under 18 when we get their first win. They do, yeah. Obviously not a great start to the tournament for the young ladies there, but they did manage to pick up a win over Turkey, which is obviously brilliant for them. So well done them on that. Obviously great to be at our home championship. Yes, apologies. Yes, Chris Dickens, Dicko, the MK Lightning commentator, stepping down after sort of putting away the mic. He's been involved with MK for a really, really long time. He's he's been a solid fixture in and around the Lightning. Of course, obviously, have been streaming for a bit now, and he's been very, very heavily involved with that. So all the best to him. Interested to see, of course, who takes over. Eventually, probably won't be Bobby Chamberlain screaming into a mic, but all the best to. I did tweet Dicko earlier to sort of so I hope he just sort of enjoys the final few miles of what he's doing there behind the microphone for MK. Hearing Danny Marshall for Chieftains wouldn't be an unreasonable, not an unlikely, a relatively reasonable assumption there, John. Fingers crossed for a Hull win in Basingstoke. Bugger off. That's all I'll say there. You've had your one. Go away. No, it'll be good, and it's always good. It'll be good to have a good chat to Matty Davis as well, mate. It'll be good to see him and see how he's doing, and yeah, just kind of get to see a different kind of Hull, and just make sure from a Basel perspective, every game's a must win now. It's time for those teams at the bottom. They've got to start playing playoff hockey now, with the playoffs sort of drawing nearer and nearer. James Archer back for Hull. Yeah, that's a very, very good point. Salem with his legs back under him as well. You assume that Hull are probably going to run that top line of Themar, Svek, and Salem, so Archer onto the second line. What was really effective actually for them the last time was they put Owen Brutton on a line with James Archer, which was just effective, babysitting in that sort of sense. But if you're a young Brit like Owen Brutton, what better, who better to kind of learn how to be like a player at this level than from a guy like James Archer, of course, who won loads with Manchester and stuff like that, one with Hull as well. So definitely definitely a boon for the Seahawks to have him back. Bases, of course, will be looking down the barrel of a potential suspension for Marcel Balach again. I haven't heard what's happening there, but we'll see, because of course now Balach will be a repeat offender because he's already had one suspension. But I venture the Bison will be getting this looked at from what people have said to me. Hull's next ban prediction: 1 in, 1 out with that team. Who's next? I don't know. Jordan McLaughlin. Maybe he'll block a punch somebody at the weekend. I don't know. We'll see what happens on that front. Either way, I think that's probably, we're at the 75-minute mark. I think it's probably time to call it there. Bannersonthewall.wordpress.com, your number one source for everything related to the basis. So Bison player comings, player goings, match write-ups. Like I said, I promised the one from last weekend is coming. I just have to find the time to get it done in my usual style. Trevor really did get banned for doing that at Hull. He did. Yes, he did. But yeah, so those bits and pieces are there from Bison Focus Writing, as well as hockey stories, long form content. If you like those kind of pieces, it's definitely kind of there. Some are written, some are audio, some are visual. There's a big sort of mix as far back into the 19th century and as far forward as the present day. Really, players, off-ice guys, refs, people who helped design the Canadian flag, war heroes, all kinds of crazy things from our hockey story series. So that's what you like. Make sure to check that out. Also, the old back catalogue of the old BOTW podcast is there, as well as our tabletop ice hockey simulation game, Dice Hockey. Free to download. All the rules and instructions are there. You just need a few bits from around your house to be able to play it. If you do download it and you do enjoy it, please do consider making a donation to Parkinson's UK. It'd be massively appreciated if you do, but you can download the game for free. And if you do download it and you play it and you enjoy it, let me know. It'd be really good. But a bunch of stuff is all there at bannersonthewall.wordpress.com. Facebook.com/bannersonthewall. If you like getting your bits and pieces through your Facebook feed, that's definitely the page to follow, because every piece that goes on the website and a few extra bits and pieces as well all go up onto the the thing there. And you got those little extra bits and pieces that I do that don't go on the website. So things like my thoughts about Jake Wachowski joining Leeds and Grant Cooper going to Belfast and those kind of things. Those will generally come through the Facebook page. But also, the best place to keep up with me is on Twitter, @BannersOTW. All the links for the website pieces go up on there. General commentary on ice hockey here in Britain, and we're mostly on the NIHL, but also on the Elite League and everything and everywhere else in between. We have fun on Twitter if you follow. Nearly at 2,000 followers, which is quite good fun. So yeah, do make sure if you're not already to drop a follow. And of course, you can get the link over on there for this wonderful thing. Wednesday nights, the BOTW What's Current stream, the NIHL's first and only live show that covers all 5 divisions in some way, shape, or form. If you haven't already and you're watching the video, please do take a moment, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell. It's really, really good to just kind of get more eyes on British hockey in whatever form, especially the NIHL, which has tons of good teams and tons of good stuff involved in it. And it'd be great to have you join us. If you are watching us, watching the playback, come and join us live. Wednesday nights, we are here live on YouTube. It would be great to have you. But there we are. Another week done as we head into, someone, like Jamie said in the chat, it's one of the bigger weekends of the season. We will have our cup finalists by Saturday night. And we could also have we've got a massive game in the context of the NIHL National Division title race, as well as plenty of good hockey across the rest of the NIHL. So hopefully it'll be a good one. And if you can find it and do it, then please do be happy. And if you can't be happy, then as always, please do be safe. As my friend Scotty Watts would say, take care of yourself and somebody else. For bannersonthewall.wordpress.com, this is Anthony Russell saying stay safe. And so long till next time. Wherever you find your hockey this weekend, folks, enjoy it. And like I say, come Saturday, we're going to have some cup finalists. See you Wednesday, everyone.